Every creator has that one idea, a story that sticks in their head for years and refuses to go away. For me, that idea became Omen. But Omen didn't appear overnight. He's the result of years of inspiration from games, comics, movies, and characters that completely changed the way I thought about storytelling. Characters who weren't always heroes. Characters who lived in the gray area between right and wrong. Characters who were shaped by trauma, loss, and the choices they made because of it. And if I'm being completely honest, Omen probably wouldn't exist without them. So before I talk about Omen, I think it's important to talk about where the idea came from. Because Omen didn't just appear out of nowhere. He's the result of years of stories, games, comics, and characters that stuck with me long after I experienced them. The biggest influence on Omen is probably Batman. More specifically, the Batman Arkham games. Growing up, what drew me to Batman wasn't that he had powers, it was that he didn't. He was just a person who had gone through immense trauma and chose to fight back against it. The Arkham games made Batman feel powerful, intimidating, and almost mythical. Criminals feared him, the city needed him, and despite everything he had been through, he still refused to cross certain lines. When I started thinking about Omen, I found myself asking, what happens when someone like Batman eventually stops believing those lines matter? That question naturally led me to Red Hood, because Red Hood represents something Batman never allows himself to become. He's someone who experienced similar pain and trauma, but came to a very different conclusion. Instead of believing criminals deserve a second chance, Red Hood believes some people simply need to be stopped permanently. What always interested me about Red Hood was that his arguments aren't completely wrong. He's not a cartoon villain. He genuinely believes he's helping people. He's just willing to go further than Batman ever would. That moral gray area became a huge part of Omen's character. Then there's Spawn. Spawn probably had the biggest impact on Omen's visual identity. I always loved how dark and imposing Spawn looked. He felt less like a superhero and more like a force of nature. His presence alone could dominate a scene. The darker themes, supernatural elements, and anti-hero nature of Spawn all influenced the direction I wanted to take Omen. I wanted Omen to feel intimidating before he even speaks. And finally, there's Venom. Not because Omen is an alien symbiote, but because Venom introduced an idea that fascinated me. The idea of a character fighting against something inside themselves. A second voice, another personality, another perspective constantly pulling them in a different direction. That concept eventually evolved into the relationship between Omen and Nyx. Rather than being a simple hero versus villain story, I wanted it to become a conflict between different parts of the same person. So after years of drawing inspiration from characters like Batman, Red Hood, Spawn, and Venom, I started asking myself a simple question. What kind of character would emerge if all of those influences came together? The answer eventually became Omen. Omen is the story of Alex, a young man whose life is defined by loss, trauma, and the people he couldn't save. Throughout his life, he's constantly forced to endure things that no one should have to experience. Abuse, grief, survivor's guilt, betrayal, and with every tragedy, a piece of the person he used to be slowly disappears. At his core, Alex wants to help people. He wants to protect others from experiencing the same pain he did. That's what makes his story so tragic. Because Omen doesn't begin as a villain. He begins as someone trying to do the right thing. But as the story progresses, his desire to protect people begins to change. The more loss he experiences, the harder it becomes for him to believe that justice alone is enough. Slowly, the line between justice and revenge starts to disappear. And that's where Omen is born. Not from hatred, not from evil, but from pain that was never allowed to heal. What interests me most about Omen isn't whether he's a hero or a villain. It's whether those labels even matter. Because if someone genuinely believes they're helping people, how far can they go before they become the very thing they hate? And then there's Voss, a character who plays a major role in Omen's story. I won't go too deep into him yet because I don't want to spoil too much. But let's just say Voss represents a side of Alex that refuses to stay buried. And as development continues, you'll be seeing a lot more of him. But Omen isn't just a character. He's the foundation for an entire world. So before I talk about the game's development, I want to talk about the kind of experience I'm trying to create. So, now that I've talked about who Omen is, I want to talk about the game itself and the kind of experience I'm trying to create. At its core, Omen is going to be a story-driven action game heavily inspired by the Batman Arkham series. When people hear that, they usually think of the combat first. And yes, combat is absolutely going to be a huge focus of the game. I want combat to feel fast, aggressive, and fluid. I want players to feel powerful without feeling invincible. Every fight should feel like you're controlling someone who has spent years mastering their abilities and learning how to use fear as a weapon. The Batman Arkham games are still, in my opinion, some of the best examples of melee combat in gaming. The flow between attacks, counters, gadgets, movement, and environmental interactions made every encounter feel dynamic, and that's something I want to capture in Omen. But combat isn't the only thing I'm taking inspiration from. In fact, one of the biggest problems I have with a lot of modern games is how stealth often feels like an afterthought. It's there because the developers felt like they needed a stealth section. You crouch in some bushes, wait for a patrol to walk by, press a button for a takedown, and move on. That's not what I want Omen to be. Stealth is not a side activity. Stealth is not a mechanic that was added at the end of development. Stealth is one of the core pillars of the game. Just like in the Batman Arkham games, I want stealth to feel like its own, fully realized gameplay system. There will be entire encounters where the smartest option isn't charging into a room and fighting everyone. It's becoming the monster in the shadows. It's using the environment. It's controlling information. It's making enemies question what they saw. And most importantly, it's making them afraid. One of the systems I'm especially excited about is something I'm currently calling the fear meter. I don't want to create a game where players are constantly being guided by glowing outlines and magical wall hacks that tell them exactly where every enemy is at all times. Instead, I want information to be earned. As enemies become more frightened, they become more likely to make mistakes. They panic. They communicate poorly. They reveal their positions. They expose themselves. Fear itself becomes a gameplay mechanic. The more control you establish over an encounter, the more information you gain. The more afraid they become, the easier they are to track and predict. Instead of the game holding your hand and highlighting every enemy through walls, the enemies themselves become the source of information. And because of that, the AI needs to be intelligent. One thing that's always bothered me in certain modern stealth games is how enemies can feel completely unaware of their surroundings. You'll be standing 10 feet away from them and somehow they don't notice. That completely breaks immersion for me. I want enemies in Omen to feel like actual people. If you're careless, they should notice. If you make noise, they should investigate. If they see something suspicious, they should react. And if they start realizing that someone is hunting them, they should become increasingly unpredictable and dangerous. The goal isn't to make enemies stupid so the player feels powerful. The goal is to make the player feel powerful because they learned how to outsmart intelligent enemies. There's still a lot of work to do before these systems are fully implemented, and I'll be dedicating an entire future devlog to stealth, AI behavior, and the fear meter because there's a lot more I want to talk about. But for now, I hope this gives you a better idea of the kind of experience I'm trying to build with Omen. Not just an action game, not just a superhero game, but a game where fear itself becomes one of your most powerful weapons. Before I wrap up this devlog, I want to talk about something that's becoming a bigger conversation in game development: AI. I want to be completely transparent about how I'm using it on this project. Omen is being developed by one person, me. I'm not a studio. I don't have a team of artists, programmers, animators, composers, writers, or designers working alongside me. I'm a college student building this project in my free time while balancing everything else that comes with life. Projects on the scale of the games that inspire Omen games like the Batman Arkham series and other large, story-driven action titles are typically built by hundreds of people over many years, with budgets that can reach tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't have those resources. In fact, I don't even have a bank account right now. So I've had to make some realistic decisions about where my time and energy should go. There are certain parts of development that I genuinely want to learn and create myself. The story, the world building, the characters, the dialogue, the lore, much of the game's design, 3D modeling, music composition, parts of the programming. These are skills I want to develop as a creator, and they're areas where I want my own voice and creativity to be present. At the same time, there are other areas that would normally require entire teams of specialists. Senior gameplay programmers, concept artists, technical designers, people with decades of experience building complex systems. I simply don't have the budget to hire those people. Because of that, AI is going to be a tool that helps me bridge some of those gaps. I'm using AI primarily for things like concept artwork, visual brainstorming, prototyping ideas, and helping me understand or implement more complex programming systems that would otherwise take me significantly longer to build alone. The goal isn't to press a button and have AI make the game for me. The goal is to use every tool available to help one person accomplish something that would normally require an entire studio. I also want to be clear that Omen will use existing Unreal Engine assets where it makes sense. Many indie developers rely on marketplace assets, plugins, and third-party tools to speed up development, and I'll be doing the same. For me, the most important thing isn't whether every single asset was created from scratch. It's whether the final experience feels meaningful, polished, and worth your time. If Omen succeeds and grows beyond what one person can realistically handle, my hope is to eventually bring more human talent into future projects and expansions. I'd love to work with professional artists, I'd love to hire composers, I'd love to bring in experienced programmers and designers. I'd love to replace temporary solutions with work created entirely by talented people. But to get there, Omen has to exist first. Right now, AI isn't replacing a team. It's helping me compensate for the fact that I don't have one. And I'd rather be honest about that from the beginning than pretend otherwise. So, with all of that being said, where exactly is Omen right now? Truthfully, still very early in development. Right now, a lot of my work has been focused on building the foundation of the project. Before I start creating combat systems, stealth mechanics, AI behaviors, and everything else I've talked about, I need to establish exactly what Omen is, who these characters are, what this world looks like, what themes the story is trying to explore, and what kind of experience I want players to have. At the moment, most of my progress has been centered around character design, story development, world building, and pre-production. I've been designing characters like Omen and Voss, refining their visual identities, planning major story beats, and laying out the systems I want to eventually implement. I've also started setting up the Unreal Engine project itself and organizing the framework that future systems will be built on. So no, I don't have a giant open world to show off yet. I don't have fully finished combat. I don't have advanced AI systems running around the map. But what I do have is a clear vision. And honestly, I think that's the most important part of any project, because every game you've ever played started exactly like this, as a story someone believed was worth creating. Right now, Omen is still at the beginning of that journey, but that's exactly why I wanted to start making these devlogs now. I don't want this series to only show the finished product. I wanted to document the entire process, the successes, the mistakes, the redesigns, the systems that work, the systems that completely fail, everything. Because years from now, when Omen is hopefully much further along, I want to be able to look back at videos like this and see where it all started. And if you've made it this far into the video, you'll be one of the people who got to witness the beginning. In future devlogs, I'll be diving deeper into specific parts of development, including the stealth systems, the fear meter, AI behavior, combat design, character creation, world building, and much more as the project continues to grow. But for now, I think that's a good place to end the first chapter of Omen's story. Thank you for watching the first devlog. I'll see you in the next one.